He is going for broke. Drew Pearson. He got it. Touchdown.
All right. Welcome in to, oh man, I had this playing in the background. The drums kept going. It's week 1, man. Welcome in. It's funny. We're previewing Cowboys Giants. Guess which episode number this is, Joe? Episode
11?
22. It's episode 22.
Yeah.
I swear, man. So,
all right.
Everyone tuning in, listening in. I am your host, John Sheps. You can find me on the Twitter at Coach Sheps. Again, this is Now About Them Cowboys. It is part of the Toilets to Titles podcast network. And that other voice you heard was resident New York Giants expert from the New York Giants corner of the T2T network. Joe knows at JoeJ_Clark on the Twitter. Joe, how we doing?
Doing great, man. Happy Sunday morning. Happy pre-start to the season. We're all super psyched. And we've got, as Cowboys fan and Giants fan, we've got our matchup coming up this upcoming weekend, prime time. And looking forward to it. And it's been like an 8-month buildup, for this moment ever since the end of the last season. So looking forward to it.
And it's always tough playing a division rival out the gate. I hate it.
I hate it. You have to let them get their sea legs under them, in my opinion. You could wait until like early October at least. And everyone's excited for the start of football anyway. It doesn't need to be divisional games. That's right.
Yeah, and the only thing going for the Cowboys in this instance where it is, so week 1, you're kind of shaking off the rust. So I don't know if the home field advantage, I'd rather play away week 1.
I agree.
Because it's a toss up regardless. And then having that, now the Cowboys have the home game down the stretch. I think then it'll be more beneficial because week 1, anything could happen. Yeah,
I'm with you. I'd rather have my team playing on the road week 1, especially against a divisional opponent. And just I'm actually more looking forward to the matchup later on the season. Just when they've got their playing legs under them, things are more set, at least for my team, which there's still a lot of stuff like a lot of uncertainty there, which we'll get into. But
yeah, the Giants are young. The Giants are young. They're up and coming. They got some talented veterans we'll talk about later, like, Darren Waller they brought in, Leonard Williams, who's a stud. We'll get into all that. And I don't want to preview too far down into the season, but I'm also interested to see what the Washington Commanders look like this year because, same coach, new offensive coordinator, new ownership, some energy. Sam Howell, they've had a very strong defense for the past few years. Chase Young is back. Jahan Dotson is ascending. I know this is Cowboys Giants, but we know what the Eagles are. The Eagles are going to be very, very tough. But Washington is the biggest wild card in the NFC East. But Joe,
that's the word that's in my mind too. Wild card. It's just kind of like we'll just have to wait and see. We just don't know but the potential's there.
Yeah. But next week at this time, right? 10:15. You know what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to be tuned into the Toilets to Titles podcast network because at 10:30 we got Title Time. Title Time is our fantasy football stardom situm show that is directed by you, the listener. In the comment section, you post in the comments, hey, what do you think about starting this guy, benching that guy, whatever your questions in, throw them in the comments. I know you came here for Dallas Cowboys content, possibly New York Giants content, but there's a good chance you also play fantasy football. So subscribe to the YouTube channel next week, 10:30 a.m. on Sunday, leading up to the games. The crew at the Title Time, they're going to take care of you. They're going to answer your questions. So make sure you subscribe. And every Tuesday night, I go live with my guy Justin, and we talk fantasy football. Thursday night, we talk NFL draft, me and Nino. So we got nonstop coverage. Joe, when is New York Giants corner going to be every week in season?
Okay, in season, it's going to be 8 a.m. Wednesday mornings. So it used to be 8 p.m., 8:15-ish, if you will, Wednesday nights. 8 a.m. It'll be released Wednesday mornings.
So you're going to get about an extra 12 hours to digest that content before the Thursday night football game. So
An extra 12 hours to hit replay each,
yeah,
like every 30 minutes.
multiple times. All right. So check out toiletsandtitles.com. If you want to interact with any of the members of Toilets and Titles Network, you can email me, toiletsandtitles@gmail.com. We have a gilded chat which has about 250 people in there. And we're talking NFL. We're talking bets. It's free. Okay. We're talking fantasy football, Survivor Pool, which we have a $30 Survivor Pool. You can reach out at that email as well if you want in, toiletsandtitles@gmail.com. We'll take care of you. But now, enough of all the other nonsense. All right, I want to get straight to the point. So the way, I don't know if I'm going to structure every in-season episode like this, but going into week one, it's question marks, man. There are question marks, and I kind of wanted to discuss the biggest questions for the Dallas Cowboys coming into this game, week one. And I'm going to start with probably, I don't know if this is the hardest question to answer. Hopefully this question gets answered out the gate. But all right, it's about the defense. How good is the Dallas Cowboys defense? If they are elite, if they're great, they should come out the gate hot, right? It should be greatness doesn't take weeks off. Greatness is great every single week. The offensive side of the football, whatever, they could be hot and cold. I'm hoping that's not the case. But if this defense is elite, they start the season elite. They play through the mid part of the season elite. And here's some notes about this defense. Michael Parsons, going into year 3, was on an absolute tear in training camp. Absolute tear. The guy put on size. The guy's throwing bodies around. I'm assuming he's going to take a step. We invested some more money in the safety position. We invested in Jaron Kearse last year. Lock up Malik Hooker. Lock up Donovan Wilson. Now Dan Quinn's got a trio of safeties he can use at his will. They bring in Stephon Gilmore to play across Trayvon Diggs. Deron Bland, sophomore, he's going to take a step up. Jordan Lewis comes off the IR just in time for the regular season. They bring back Jonathan Hankins, which everyone's expecting Mozzie Smith to have a phenomenal, or not necessarily have a phenomenal season, to play a lot this season. Jonathan Hankins, you're familiar. Giants fans are familiar with him. That guy can play, and that guy had a good season. He put in some work. So him and Mozzie are going to be rotating, which is going to be strong from the interior D-line. The pass rush, I already mentioned Micah. They're going to have waves with DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, Dante Fowler, Dorrance Armstrong, Sam Williams. And then I think the biggest, I would say weakness, is the linebacker position, because Damone Clark, we don't know necessarily what he is going into year 2. But LVE, he's been steady Eddie. He should be freed up with this interior defensive line play. So from the outside looking in, Joe, all those things I just mentioned, that was a mouthful. What are you expecting from the Dallas Cowboys defense going into this game?
I expect them to be an elite defense, just like I saw them last year, but even better. These signings were very, very savvy. Stephon Gilmore, I was a huge fan of that move. That's one of those savvy veterans. Like, even if he's older, maybe, and I don't know, maybe he's lost a step or two, but he's one of those players who's smart enough and has seen everything that he's going to be in the right place at the right time. Oftentimes. And anyway, he's kind of like, Robin to Diggs's Batman anyway. So it doesn't matter, but he's certainly not going to be a liability. He's only going to help the defense. Hankins was smart, really good depth signings. You got Fowler, everything you touched on. I think one of the premier defenses from last year got better. And I think their defense is as good as anyone. And as an outside observer, I think the defense was trying to, they were very much setting the tone in preseason. Like, you remember, like the bickering, not whatever, like the bantering against Dak and everything.
Right.
That's just them trying to, like, hey, the defense as a unit is like, we're going to be badass this year. We're setting the tone from game one, even in preseason. And it wasn't any real slap against Dak. It's like, this is our personality. This is what we're going to roll into the season with.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you brought up that point, because I wasn't even thinking about that. But that is true. Like, we have an edge.
I remember it was blowing up the internets and the Twitters
every year,
like a month ago. And I'm like, dude, they're not going to be pooping all over this dude. That's their quarterback. He's been around for a long time. They love him, and so they're trying to set the tone for the rest of the season.
Yeah. This is who we are, and we're going to be this way consistently. So, but we got to start out hot. And I know you're hoping we don't, but if this is an elite defense, I'm going to talk about key matchups later down in the episode, and there's some offensive tackles on the New York Giants that are pretty damn phenomenal. And if this is an elite
There's
one of
one,
them?
but we'll get to both of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll see. We'll see if
There's
the other one
one, and the other one has promise upside, but
first
it's
round
not
pick,
there yet.
top 15. So year
He
two.
was the worst. He was the most poorly graded in PFF offensive tackle last year, or bottom three.
Right.
So
Right.
believe me, we have a lot of hope for him, but he's not Andrew Thomas yet.
Right. But Andrew Thomas is pretty damn elite. So it'll be exciting to watch. I'm sure the Cowboys will move Micah around, but I'm sure Micah's going to want to take his shots at Andrew Thomas here and there to see if he could beat an elite offensive tackle. All right. My next biggest question going into this game is, can Dak play a turnover-free game? All right. Seems simple enough. He only played in 12 games last year. He had the most interceptions in his career, 15. And that's in 12 games. A lot of them came on, receivers dropping the ball, bouncing into a corner's hands. So I'd say there were probably 5 or 6 of them that were, on the receiver. But the others, there were some simple rollouts, not seeing a linebacker underneath, trying to dump it to the tight end. I'm hoping that bringing in the extra option in Brandon Cooks, because there's really CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz, and everybody knew he loves feeding Dalton Schultz. And this year it's going to be Jake Ferguson. I'm hoping that having some additional options, Jalen Tolbert taking a step, Tony Pollard being on the field a little more often as an option for a dump off. He won't try to do too much. Spread the ball around like he did 2 or 3 years ago when Cedric Wilson took a big step, because I liked when the 4th or 5th receiving option were getting targets. I think that's when Dak's at his best, when he could spread the ball around. But what are you expecting from Dak Prescott against your New York Giants defense?
Listen, I expect Dak to be Dak. I think last year was an anomaly. I think it got too crazy. This isn't an old quarterback who's suddenly, just going off the edge. Nothing like that at all. I think it was just an anomaly, whatever it was. Injuries, just not getting, he really didn't start until like the middle of the season, and it could have just been that. But if I were a Cowboys fan, I honestly wouldn't be worried about it. I think he's going to be very good. I mean, he's, in this game in particular, it's the Giants have so much. I felt coming in when the schedules first came out a few months ago, I had this. I'm like, you know what? I think the Giants can take a win from the Cowboys this year, and it would probably be the home game. But now I probably have it marked down as a loss, because there's too many question marks. First of all, I think the Cowboys are a better team, period. Even though I think the Giants have improved a lot, but the young secondary, like I expected Adoree to be out there, and Cordell Flott, who flashed a lot last year as a rookie. I
LSU.
thought he'd steal. Yeah, I thought he would, claim the slot corner position. That didn't happen. So Adoree's going to be there, where many of the best wide receivers do wind up playing at least a lot of their time. So we got the rookie corners on the outside. Listen, I'm excited. I'm also scared.
Right.
So,
right.
And I think Dak has always done well against the Giants. I mean, it's been against bad Giants teams, to be honest with you, for a long time, except for 2016. But, I don't see why he wouldn't have, we still have a lot of question marks. The defense is Kayvon Thibodeau's second year. Azeez Ojulari was injured most of last year. So was Leonard. I like the additions we have on our defense. Don't get me wrong. And Akarake is going to help, but it's going to be a hell of a test. There's still a lot of, as opposed to like Dallas or even Philadelphia, where a lot of things are known. With the Giants, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of unknown. But right. I think Dak is going to do well. I think the Giants are going to have to score points this game, a lot of points if they're going to win. And against this defense, it's going to be tough.
On a weekly basis this season, what worries me about Dak is just not being affected by the outside noise. Who cares what you did last year? The saying for baseball players, like they always end up playing to their card.
Next play up. Yeah, just move on to the next play.
It's going to even out. His career, he is what he is, right? Mm-hmm. And he's been a very good quarterback.
He's had not an interception machine.
So just if he can quiet the noise, and instead of trying to silence everybody, just play the game, I think he'll be okay. I just worry about him on a week-to-week basis, hearing it in the back of his head and maybe trying to do too much, maybe trying to shut somebody up and throwing the ball when he should be handed it off. Because he called the offense for Will Greer's last game in Dallas. So he's got a good grip of this Mike McCarthy system. I would like to see him take more of a role like Tony did towards the end of his career. Dak's turning 30. So Dak is in his prime. We probably got about from here until about 33, 34. This is his prime. So I'd like to see him take some leadership in this offense, but be selective. That's what Tony was good at. Pick and choose when it's time to run, when it's time to pass, and not be affected by the noise.
Well, what do you think? And maybe I'm jumping ahead here. If I am, we can wait. But how different do you think this offense is going to be? With McCarthy's calling the plays, right? I know they don't.
Yeah.
So is it going to be a very different? Any idea?
I think we're going to see more screens. Okay. I think we're going to see more traditional run scheme. I think Tony's going to be fed a little bit more. I think that Dowdle will be fed. But I still think, they're calling it the Texas Coast offense. So I think it's going to be what Dak's comfortable with. They're going to take a little bit from Kellen, but I don't think you're going to see the reverses.
That's the way to do it.
I don't think you're going to see the jet sweeps. Like, I think it's going to be a simplified version.
Jet sweeps.
Yeah. Like Kellen, what would drive me nuts about him is it would be like, we'd get first down. And then we'd get on first down, the third time we got to first down, we get 6 yards in the first carry and be 2nd and 4. Then he'd do like a triple reverse and it would be now 3rd and 12.
Yeah,
like we would just shoot ourselves.
They always get blown up. I mean, they've been incompetent anyway for a very long time.
Well, you're talking about the offense. So one of the big questions about this offense, how will Tony Pollard look as the featured back? So last year he averaged 62 yards per game on 12 carries per game, carrying the football. He added about 2 to 3 receptions per game. He had an 88.9 PFF rushing grade, which was 4th best in the NFL. But he only carried the ball 12 times. He had 5.2 yards per carry. So I expect that to change. His 3.2 yards after contact per carry were number 1 in the NFL. Okay. So he's shown the ability, I don't know how long he's going to be with Dallas. I don't know if we're looking at 3 years of high end play. I want to see 1 year of elite play. I want to see this guy from 12 carries per game to about 16 to 18. So I'm really only looking for 4 to 6 additional carries, but those 2 to 3 receptions per game, I'd like to see up to about 5. So I want to see 23 to 25 touches per game from Tony Pollard. So I'm interested to see how he handles that.
Yeah. So you think he's going to have 16 to 18 carries per game? I mean, obviously he's the featured back, but you think he's going to get that many carries?
If he was at 12 last year, I expect, because there were drives he wasn't even on the field. I expect, and then maybe as if we're in the drivers, because we'll probably, due to our defense, hopefully be ahead, suffocating offenses. So I'd say they're going to be, giving him the football. I don't think he'll top 20 carries, but I think he'll top 20 touches.
Yeah, he's I've got big expectations for him. I mean, listen, all in the fantasy leagues that I'm in, it was funny because when I was on with you a few months ago, you were talking about how you thought Pollard was going to have a bigger year than Barkley, and you made really, really good points. And I actually, in my fantasy league so far, I've got one left Wednesday night, actually, the night before the season starts. And it's the league that I host. I've taken Saquon over Tony because I think both are going to have fantastic years. And because both were available wherever I was, picking later in the rounds, and I would have been very happy with Pollard. So I do think he's going to have a monster year because, listen, I don't know the ins and outs as well as you do, but one thing I know is that Dallas always has a powerful running game. And there's no reason to believe that's not going to happen again this year. And Pollard is ready for that duty. And he's got the tread on his tires, even though he's played a lot. He hasn't been the bell cow that Zeke was. So he's got the tread on the tires. And I think he's going to have a monster year.
I wouldn't be surprised if week 1 he comes out and they feed him. And then I'm not saying I don't think it would be like that the rest of the year, but week 1, I wouldn't be surprised if they put the NFL on notice. Like, hey, this is what our offense looks like, to put it on film. So now teams think, all right, they are going to be run heavy, and then kind of they'll be able to play with them, with Dak and with the offense the rest of the year. So I wouldn't be surprised if week 1 they come out running. You
can use the run to set up the pass, or vice versa. You can use the pass to set up the run. And when you got both, defenses beware.
And then I kind of put this as a question, but I don't really like, we're not going to get too far into it. How much are they going to use Deuce Vaughn? Because Rico Dowdle's the number 2. He had a 79.5 PFF rushing grade, which is the 8th highest amongst running backs in preseason. I don't think he's going to be like a huge, like, I don't think he's going to be a regular, consistent part of the offense. I'm more so talking about it from a fan's perspective. I get excited when I see him on the field. I'd like to see him, get like 3 to 5 touches a game. I just want to see what this kid can do with space. Will the offensive line look rusty? That'll be big thing that plays into Tony Pollard. Zach Martin missed 90% of training camp. Terrence Steele is playing in his first game since suffering torn ACL in week 14. Tyler Smith, he moved back inside with Tyron there, but the good thing about that is they had a whole training camp together. I like Tyron and Tyler together. Terrence and Zach know each other. Tyler Biotish is taking a step. So will they look rusty or will they be dominant? And the last question I have is Brandon Aubrey a liability? Preseason, he went 8 of 9 with extra points. The first one he missed was in the first game of preseason. He was consistent after that. He went 2 for 3 on field goals. He made one, I want to say, from like 30 to 39. He missed one from 59. Then he made another from 50 yards out. So it'll be, that those are the big questions. I think the Aubrey thing is something all Dallas Cowboys fans are thinking about.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than losing a game like 28-27 because the field goal kicker missed a pretty much a gimme like 30-yarder or something like that.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the offensive line is the biggest question mark for Dallas, which anyone who's a football fan knows that's it hasn't been like that for a very long time. Dallas has had like top 3, top 5 offensive lines for a long time. Obviously last year it wasn't really like that. It wasn't horrible. It was, but it wasn't like top 3, I guess, that we were used to. So I expect just overall, I mean, you look at the offense and the quarterback, the weapons they have, and it's going to help the offensive line too. And the offensive line just might be very good anyway in its own right. But even if it's not like, say top notch, I mean, just having the weapons alone and knowing how to use them, and the offense can still be explosive. It helps the offensive line too. So
I'm going to take this right into one of my key matchups for the game. So now moving on to key matchups, if you're trying to keep up, Tyler Smith and Zach Martin versus Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. This is one of my key matchups that will dictate the outcome of this game. Dexter Lawrence, game wrecker. He was number 1 per PFF in the league for pass rush from the interior defensive line with a 92.4 pass rush grade. Dude's a dude. Like I said, he is phenomenal. And Leonard Williams, he ranked 15th last year, and he was banged up with the 74.8 pass rush grade. So how do you see that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I like the match. Those are 2 good interior offensive linemen they're going against. I know Zach Martin's older, but again, this is a guy who's been around. Again, he's savvy. He knows his stuff. So these guys aren't easy. I am really excited. Dexter Lawrence, like he'd always been a very good player for the Giants before last year. But last year, Wink Martindale had him playing almost exclusively, I believe, zero technique, like directly over the center. And that's where he became just an absolute monster, like consistently pushing the interior of the pocket into the quarterback. So that's helpful. And like you said, like Leonard, I'm expecting a big bounce back year because last year was the first year he was dealing with injuries. He was playing, I know he had like an arm or shoulder problem most of the year, and he was also playing with the neck burner, like I think like at least half, maybe 3/4 of the year. So all systems to go for Leonard. Really excited about that. We need them to be monsters on the interior because we're still, Kayvon's a sophomore, and he flashed very well, but there needs to be more consistency from Kayvon, which I think he will, this year and next year. And Azeez Ojulari, I just don't know. He was injured last year. Whenever he played, he tends to get sacks, but not that great at setting the edge. So we really need those guys on the interior to play well. And we've got some depth to help them out because these guys played like 95% of the snaps last year and out of necessity. So
Right.
We actually had, I think, some quality depth backing these guys up where they can take a rest, make them more efficient, and better overall. So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting because I like our interior line, but the Cowboys interior offensive line is, they're a savvy group. They're savvy and obviously talented. Talented.
Right. Well, on the other side of the football, Michael Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence versus Evan Neal and Andrew Thomas. So now this is flipped, but exterior, not interior. These are very, 3 elite players, 1 ascending player. Parsons and Thomas are the headliners, and Lawrence and Neal are both very talented, kind of second tier. Thomas only allowed 15 hurries and 3 sacks in 2022, while Neal let up 7 sacks and 22 hurries, but only 7 more hurries than Thomas did. This one, Marcus Lawrence is more of the do-it-all for the Cowboys. He sets the edge. He's a run defender. He makes plays when he needs. Like he's very talented, savvy veteran. Parsons, if you let Parsons get to the quarterback early and often, your quarterback's going to be seeing ghosts, which is something that's already happened at MetLife Stadium. So shout out to Sam Darnold. What are your thoughts on these matchups here?
Yeah, it's scary from a Giants fan perspective. If we're going to be realistic, listen, a lot of teams, they only have one really good defensive end pass rusher. And if I'm that team, then I'm just going to send them against Evan Neal all day long. But you've got more than you've got at least two, just the two starters
and Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler. So there are going to be waves. Sam Williams is, who knows, like he is a freak athlete, very new. I mean, only started playing football in high school, and he can be a game wrecker. He's not going to be out there for 90% of the snaps, but the 40% of the snaps he's out there, he can be a game wrecker.
Yeah, reminds me of back in the day with the Coughlin years, at least the first half of the Coughlin years when we had like the NASCAR. Well, NASCAR was when they were putting all the guys out.
OC, Tuck.
But you had the depth.
Right.
You had it's like they had really good depth. You had the big, but you had the really big names, but you also had guys like Matthias Kiwanuka who they didn't even have a position. They had to put him an outside linebacker, even though he was really a pass rusher, because they had no other place to put him. That's what the Cowboys remind me of. So it's scary. But like I said, as for Giants fans, my concern is not really the left side of the offensive line. Like I believe in Andrew Thomas. I like Ben Bredesen, to be honest with you, left guard. I think he's fine. Could they be an upgrade? Yeah, but I'm not really worried about him. The rookie JMS, he'll have his struggles. It's a really tough defense to go against.
Dominated at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, no, I love him. Don't get me wrong. Every single Giants fan cried tears of joy when we got him in the second round.
Upset.
Trust me.
I was upset.
Yeah, and
he's talking about John Michael Schmitz for those not familiar with the letter.
Yeah, JMS. The right side is scary because we've got Gleniski, who's not a very good veteran. And then these competing with Josh Azudu, who I have a lot of hope for, but very, very rusty. And then Evan Neal is the key part of this offensive line for the Giants. I don't expect an Andrew Thomas jump that Andrew Thomas took in his second year, but I do expect improvement. And he was looking better in the preseason before he got a concussion. Not great, but better. But I'll tell you right now, it's for the offensive line. I'm not saying the Giants offense can't be effective, because I do think it's going to be an effective, very different offense this year. But man, against those really good defense like Dallas, like Evan Neal is key. And, we'll see what happens. So listen, you're making the point that he's like a top 7 pick. Yeah, we need him to play like that. Right. That hasn't happened yet. And I'm, forgiving. He's a rookie, but that hasn't happened yet. And we need to see serious growth this year.
All right. Now
it's potentially scary.
Right. Yeah, we'll see. That right side of the offensive line, hopefully we're attacking. This is probably the biggest match of the game. One of the two biggest matchups of the game. It's Saquon Barkley versus the Cowboys linebackers, Damone Clark and Leighton Vander Esch. Saquon Barkley, besides Micah Parsons, is probably one of the most talented players on the field. And when he gets going, that gives Daniel Jones and the rest of that offense life. Saquon Barkley gets going, it gives them life. Clark and Leighton Vander Esch will be playing behind a strong interior defensive line. That probably the best they've had. They used to have kind of pass rushers, light guys. Rod Marinelli loved that. Bringing in Dan Quinn, he started to change to more big-bodied guys that are high motor. And hopefully they're going to be demanding double teams, keeping Clark and Leighton Vander Esch free to get to a guy like Saquon Barkley and bottle him up. So this one, if the Cowboys are going to win, they need to shut down Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, and I think they're capable of doing it because it's a very strong defensive front. And like you said, they've got fast linebackers. And Vander Esch has been in the league for a few years now. This guy knows what he's doing. And honestly, when you're in this day and age, when you're talking about the linebacking core possibly being your question mark, you're in really good shape. because it's really about the defensive line and the secondary. But you got speed out there, like you mentioned, and some big bodies. And the thing with Saquon, I'm really curious to see because, people talk about, well, the Giants offense was very limited last year. And they're going to, second year in a row that, teams are going to have film on this offense. This is going to be a very different offense. It's not going to be the same offense as last year. They're going to be opening things up. And I think a lot of that's actually going to be Saquon getting quite a few more receptions this year. I think he's actually going to get less carries and more receptions.
Let's bring that right into my next matchup as well. And you can talk about both of them, Saquon and Darren Waller, because just as much as Saquon Barkley is going to be the spoon that stirs this drink, so is Darren Waller. Darren Waller is the Giants' best receiver, hands down.
He's wide receiver one.
He is elite. Now, Jaron Kearse, he prides himself as a tight end eliminator. He loves the big matchups. He loves Travis Kelce, Dallas Goedert, George Kittle. Well, he's going to have his hands full week one because this guy, as a route runner, as a catcher, as a receiving option, he's one of the best in the NFL. So Darren Waller, Saquon Barkley, if those two are going, Daniel Jones is going to be in his bag, and that's when you're going to see guys like Jalen Hyatt sneak behind you for a big momentum shifting 40 or 50-yard touchdown.
Yeah, I mean Jalen Hyatt. Yeah, I think I'm not sure how much we're going to see him.
Well, you know what I mean. Like somebody, it could be Darius Slayton. It could
long-term plan.
Yeah,
or even just for the season, meaning long-term. Yes, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell. Sterling Shepard, assuming he's out there, he's surprisingly, off the PUP. Wan'Dale Robinson, surprisingly off the PUP. That's the goal: is stretching the field, helping to open things up underneath. And if there's focus underneath, like on Saquon, be able to throw the ball, vertically down the field. So, and the quarterback, has to take those shots down the field too. And you got to keep the defense honest. And so, I think this offense, I just don't, even as an informed Giants fan, I don't fully know what to expect because we haven't even really seen it. Even the first unit offense in preseason was really on the field for one drive. They weren't really on the field at all for game one of preseason. They weren't on the field for game 3 of the preseason. They were on for one drive, beginning of game 2, and that was it against Carolina. So I really don't know what to expect, but based on the speed they've got, and Darren Waller, who is he's not wide receiver, but he's effectively the wide receiver one. It's going to open things up. Like, it draws a lot of attention. Like you said, Hyatt getting behind that defense, which can happen very, very quick. We'll see how often and well he does that. But, Paris Campbell is going to help with his speed. And, even Sterling Shepard underneath, or even Wan'Dale Robinson, it's going to be a different offense. It's going to be a different offense. But they need those two key guys. Yeah. If I'm the Dallas defense, I'm focusing on Darren Waller, probably even Waller more than Barkley, to be honest with you.
Right. I could see that. I could definitely see that. Now, my last matchup for the game is Brandon Cooks versus Deontay Banks. So I know you mentioned CeeDee Lamb and Dory Jackson, and I mean, that's probably what a lot of people are going to be focusing on. But I'm going to be focusing on this matchup because Deontay Banks was my number 3 corner going into the NFL drafts. And a lot of guys had, other players above him. So I feel pretty good that the NFL looked at Banks how I did. I think he's a phenomenal player. He is explosive, sticky, physical, everything you'd want in a corner. He is very versatile and well-rounded. Okay. But Brandon Cooks is a savvy veteran Deontay Banks is well-rounded. Brandon Cooks has been around. He's gotten around. So I'm looking forward to see how this young, scrappy rookie, goes and matches up with this savvy veteran. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in having veteran cornerbacks out there, or at least non-rookies starting a season. I like having experience, obviously talent, but experience out there as well. So I would have loved to have Adoree and James Bradbury out there as my starters. Still drafting Deontay Banks, when they took him in the first round, but you give him that year to get it under his to get a year under his belt. But Listen, I love Banks, and I love the pick, and I think he's going to wind up being a very good pick for this team. But week one against this offense, it's going to be tough, and that is a very savvy veteran who's played with mostly a lot of bad quarterbacks in his career, and he still put up 1,000-yard seasons.
Right.
So it's and Banks right now, he's got his holes too. Like thank God he's got the speed to catch up a lot. But he's got holes in his game right now that need to be closed. But so we're excited as Giants fans, with him and Hawkins. But the concern should be legitimate too, just given the normal trajectory and growth for a cornerback in the NFL.
All right. Well, Joe, man, that's it. We wrap this thing up. I think we covered this game. I appreciate your time. He's at JoJ_Clark on the Twitter. I am at Coach Sheps. The Toilets Titles Podcast Network is here for you this season, not only just covering the NFL, not only covering NFL draft, we also have fantasy football content. If you are somebody like Joe or like me who has a fantasy draft coming up this week, somebody who's in a league where they like to wait last minute, toiletsandtitles.com under the fantasy football tab. We have our redraft rankings. If you play in Dynasty, we have our Dynasty rankings. If you play in IDP, which is individual defensive players, we have those rankings. If you're into the NFL draft, I know Joe and me, we've been going to town. We already have about 10 write-ups, I think, which is last year. I feel like it took us we didn't have 10 write-ups till January. And yeah.
No, we did. It wasn't what you probably wasn't the number you wanted, but we had a lot more than. But man, it was after January where we just wanted to afterburner.
Yeah, now we're starting. So we're gonna have to go back and touch on these players again because we're gonna watch their 2023 film. But we have a good idea. I'm looking forward to watching this Florida State LSU matchup tonight, man. With my guy Coleman, LSU, Florida State. These are both national champion contenders. But everybody listening at home, we got tons of other shows to cover content like that. So you can catch us there. Hopefully you're enjoying that. Hopefully you've enjoyed your off season, and hopefully you understand that we will be here for you to take care of you this NFL season. So everybody take care. We will catch you all later on.